Hey, thank you for joining us on Something to Talk About from Kings and Tamuning. Today, I have some guests that will be with me to talk about all things FSM, everything you wanted to know about living in the FSM, even if you weren't raised there. That's all ahead on Something to Talk About. Welcome to Kings and Something to Talk About. I've got some great guests, as I said, our friends from the FSM. Let me introduce you to Kemble Mita. His brother-in-law is Eric Divinigracia, his brother Max Mita, and Dave Angel, all from the same law firm, family, extended family, and they're in Guam because Max was just, I was going to say ordained, but they get it. So you were sworn in to the Guam Bar Association. You're a new lawyer.
I am.
Did you wake up this morning feeling, I don't know, a little more smart or not really?
Yeah, just it felt good. Yeah, it was a nice little ceremony.
Yeah.
And the family was there, so it was really nice.
And I think the reason that everybody is here was just for this occasion, right? Getting a new lawyer in the family, and now this team of friends and brother-in-law is now the Ramp and Mita law firm operating out of Pompeii, yes?
That's correct.
And Kembo's the founding partner.
Not the founding partner.
Well, now you run the joint, but
Yes.
You partnered up with your original founding partner, which
Fred Ramp.
Fred Ramp. Okay.
And now I have two new partners. So Eric and Dave are now partners in the firm, and myself, and now we get to pick on the associates to do all the dirty work.
How long does it take to rise to the level of partner? Especially when it's your brother. Is there like a faster track, or It's a funny story. Yeah. Well, first of all, how did you become a partner? Did you become a partner is it by simple investment, or is it by caseload, or is it by, how does that work?
How does that work, Eric?
How does that work, Eric?
I think it was kind of timing. It was timing with us. Because I've been with the firm since 2013.
Yes.
And Dave's been with the firm like a year and a half. And now Max was come on, and Max is going to be a partner. So.
Well, sure, he is.
Yeah. So, I think it's about timing with all of us. I mean, even though Fred ran it solo for like over 20, 30 years, but with associates, and then Kemble has been a partner with him for 8 years?
Yeah, 8 years.
And then now we're all partners. I think it's just a matter of time. We're growing so big.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the rate of growth is pretty high, because if he was running the place by himself for 20 years, then you came in, and so now you've got 4. Are there any other associates?
We just hired another attorney.
Okay, so now you've got
2 associates.
You've got a pretty big team now. Are there that many cases or issues in Pompeii or in the FSM that would warrant having that many attorneys?
Well, believe it or not, we are pretty busy. We wouldn't be hiring a 5th attorney if we were not that busy. We mainly do litigation, but we do handle a fair amount of transactional law, so reviewing contracts and other non-litigation matters. But we are very busy in terms of litigation. Although we're based in Pompeii, we do have clients in the other 3 states, so Yap, Kushai, and Chuk. We do represent many clients from Guam that do business in the FSM. We have other clients in the U.S. mainland and Hawaii that also do business in the FSM, clients from Asian countries, so China, Taiwan, Japan. In the FSM, we have what's called a captive insurance industry. I think they tried it in Guam and it didn't work out. Yeah. So we bring in several millions a year into FSM. There's 19 captives now, with a few more coming down the the line, and we represent all 19 of them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So we're
That's
quite,
a lot.
Keeps us busy.
Yeah, I bet.
So the corporate law is pretty busy, and then litigation, as I mentioned in a radio show yesterday, we represent clients in the telecommunication industry, petroleum industry, airline industry, utility company.
So are you
insurance.
the largest law firm and the law firm that everybody...
We're the only law firm. There's 2 or 3, maybe a total of 4 private practices aside from our firm, and it's all one man or one woman show. So we're the only one that's more than one attorney, and we're now on our 5th attorney. So, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think the other firms, they don't want to grow. They're happy where they are with one person, maybe their wife or husband helping out in the firm. But we have a vision of being regional. So Dave's taking the Palau bar exam. I'm going to take the Marshall bar exam. Eric may take the RMI bar exam. And we're looking into CNMI. And then Kiribati and Nauru as well. So we don't want to be based in these jurisdictions, but our clients in FSM, if they want to do business in those areas or have questions about the law in Guam or CNMI, we can handle those questions.
Well, now that you've got a new lawyer that's barred in Guam, there's another...
We do work with several law firms in Guam. So if there's litigation, we wouldn't come here and do litigation. We would work with the firms we partner up with in Guam. I don't want to mention them. Maybe they don't want to be named. So
Okay, well, we'll find out once a document comes out. Who's who in this world. I was having a conversation with somebody, a mutual friend of ours, Carlotta Leongara, and Carlotta was actually the reason why I even met Kembo.
Yep.
And she was saying the humble beginnings where you came was in Chuuk was pretty impressive. Oh, was it in Chuuk or was it when you first started? She said you were like on a walk-up. Oh, no, you're on a second floor of something that that looked like it could have been on the second floor of a barber shop. I mean, it was pretty humble, and you sort of built it into. I don't know how luxurious your offices are now. But to build a law firm.
I think what Carlotta is talking about is after college, I graduated from college in California, and I moved back immediately to Chuuk, and I was a high school teacher. And making $2 an hour, making about 180 2 weeks. And I was happy. I lived in a really old, broken down house, but the joy of helping kids. I taught 5 classes in Chuuk and really enjoyed it. And now that I'm an attorney, I still have the benefit of those relationships in Chuuk with the kids that are now living in Chuuk and working in maybe at the court or the AG's office. And a lot of people, they don't just look at me as Kembo just came as an attorney. I was there in 1999 working as a high school teacher, and I get the benefit of those relationships now as a professional. So it did start, at the bottom, and getting here it's been a journey, but it's really been beneficial to be able to come back home and do something like this. The firm, we deal with a lot of really big issues in the country. So even though we're not in the government, we used to be prosecutors in the government. The private sector, we get to influence policy and politics, even though it's from the background.
Yeah.
And that's really rewarding. I think we do some really great quality work in the legal profession, and it pays both in terms of the accomplishment in winning these cases, but it's also a great profession.
You could have also taken another path, considering your father having been the ambassador to Japan, the chief of staff to President Mori, consul to Hawaii. There was a path that you could have easily, any one of you guys could have easily fallen some. Why did you go into law and not politics?
When I was in Chuuk, after college, I was intrigued by the law. My senior year in college, I clerked at the FSM Supreme Court under the Chief Justice, and I took a liking to the law. And so, but I wanted to do 2 years back home and giving back to the kids. And once I did that, I went straight from Chuuk to Michigan, which was pretty tough. I had never seen
Oh my gosh!
seen snow in my life.
Yeah,
Never been past the West Coast. that was really tough for me.
That's
and
rough up there in
I
the
got
weather,
there in
yeah.
December.
Oh gosh.
I never seen trees with no leaves before. I thought it was the ugliest thing, and I was homesick. And when snow first fell, I ran out on the balcony and I was eating the snow. I called home and said, "Dad, Mom, snow is beautiful." And 5 months later, I'm going, I want to kill myself.
Oh,
I want
yeah.
to come back home. I miss the islands.
Yeah.
And I ended up staying there 2 years after law school. I was licensed in Michigan, clerk for the municipal court in Michigan. Just sold my house. I bought a house right before the bubble bursted in Michigan, and so I was invested in Michigan. But throughout the entire time after law school, I always knew I was going to go back home and do some good things, not just in terms of making a lot of money or creating a big firm. It was more just I want to go back home and give back to FSM, because I'd learned a lot. I passed the bar exam, working for the court there. I don't know anyone from FSM, any locals who did that.
And I think that's what the attraction is to this story, because you're an exception. I think that your family is actually an exception to what is coming out of the FSM. Under the compacts, it's sort of a difficult situation for the destinations where migrants, choose to live. You guys have been there, done that, and when we come back, we're going to take a quick break so you guys can actually hammer into that macadamia nut pancake. I just want to sort of go through, this idea of wanting to give back, coming home, leaving, and you guys especially, not having lived in Pohnpei or in the FSM in this area, growing up someplace else, what life is like when now that it sounds like you're in for the long haul. I mean, you are. They're not going to let you go because you're family, right? And then you, like you said, Dave, you're invested. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're something to talk about. We're at King's and we're eating. Come on back. Welcome back to King's Restaurant in Tumuli. Something to talk about, and my friends from the law firm of Rab and Mita. 2 Mitas, 1 Davini Gracia, and 1 angel. That must be interesting. It's like 1 angel at the table. How lucky we are. Can I ask you just quickly before we get into the other parts of the conversation, what are some of the challenges that you face coming from the FSM and traveling in this region, given that you're a successful attorney, educated, and maybe something that we don't see all the time? Do you ever sort of get profiled?
Well, me and Max, my brother, we were born in Saipan during the TT government time. Our parents were in the government. So now, whenever we come through immigration in Guam, we have FSM passports, and the immigration officer will say, "You guys were born in Saipan. Why are you carrying FSM passports?" And every single time I come through I have to tell them, because I'm from the FSM, and they go, "Why? Why don't you have a U.S. passport? Why don't you choose a U.S.?" I go, "No, I'm an FSM citizen. I'm proud to be FSM. We own our lands back home." I usually say that, and we live at home, and they're just kind of puzzled, like, okay.
Like who would want that?
Who would want to stay in FSM? Everyone's coming through here and want to live here.
Yeah.
You guys can be U.S. citizens, or you have an option, and yet you're choosing FSM.
Yeah. You know what though? That honestly, that's part of the ignorance, and which is really unfortunate, because in Guam,
Sorry about that.
almost, our government constantly calls attention to the issue of the compact and the burden on the budgets and the just the lack of proper reimbursement. At some point, do you take that personally? First of all, do you take it personally? You served in the U.S. Coast Guard, you retired.
I don't take it personally. I think, when we showed up to the U.S. and everything, we had the same opportunities. And I think it goes back to what we said yesterday, where it all starts from the home. And I think our parents really raised us and kept us straight. And we could have easily been, taking the other road and been, drink a lot or do whatever. But we stayed the straight path. And me and Kempo took different paths, but we ended up in the same field. I went one way, but we were so close that we ended up here, which is something we
Well, you mean you took the path toward the military,
Right.
and he not like one way. You guys had like the prodigal sons or anything. I mean, it was okay. You ended up in the same
Right.
place, but you took two paths
Right.
to get
I
there,
think
and
our
they're both
parents were
yeah.
the ones that really, kept us, and I think that's where it should start from.
Yeah.
There's these issues out there that, yes, the government or laws can maybe help, but I think even without good parents, even that's not going to work.
Maybe you should tell me, Dave, your experiences living in this part of the world, growing up in Oregon, yeah,
Yeah.
and having the American lifestyle, and then moving to this far-flung place in the Western Pacific.
Well, I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to come in the first place, was get somewhat out of my comfort zone. I always say I wanted to go on an adventure, and I kind of found it. I lived a pretty typical American life, in the suburbs, everything like that. Both my parents worked for the government, and my mom was a nurse, and my dad was a horticulturist, and
Really, I wanted to be one when I was in high school. I wanted to
he's
be
the
an
most
horticulturist.
popular person now because everyone wants to do gardens and everything. And he's just this
Organic. Now
grizzled
he's
old
like
guy who's
he's like a
planting
rock star.
flowers. Yeah.
He's a rock star. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
so cool. Okay.
Yeah, so once I actually got to Pohnpei, and I think everyone who's from the U.S. or elsewhere who's never been to the Pacific, you get there and there is that shock of, oh, I'm in this completely different place, because so many things are different there. But at the end of the day, the people were so nice and so welcoming. Obviously,
Yeah.
taken in by the Mitas. I feel like I have a surrogate family.
Yeah.
And I've never really looked. Every time I go back to the U.S., I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not looking back.
Something's missing.
Exactly, yeah.
Something's missing. And the same thing for you, Eric. You grew up in a number of places, and
Yeah.
but you married into the family, so
Yeah, but we're pretty vested there. I mean, even on my own and with the help of my wife. Like I said, we started the boxing program. We even got one of the biggest grants to renovate a fitness center. And now it was nothing, and now over 100 people participating every day. So together, we've coached hundreds, probably thousands of people in the last 5 years.
Is that like a
there.
side business of yours?
No,
this
it's
gym?
all volunteer.
No kidding.
Yeah, I've done it
You
all
got to
big
tell
time.
everybody that you were the coach of an Olympian.
Yeah. So that was amazing. So we've helped affect, I think, a lot of people's lives. I mean, just from our Facebook FSM boxing page, with over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views.
Wow.
That tells us a lot of Micronesian, non-Micronesians are watching what we're doing there and really support it. And even in the international world, I've got a lot of support. So we're pretty vested in the community, not just business-wise, practice-wise, but just community-wise everywhere. Like you hear these guys, even they call me coach. Everywhere in Pohnpei, everyone says, "Hey, coach," or they call Coach me, Coach Eric, and Coach Kim. Wherever we go, so we're pretty vested there, not just in practice-wise, but just community-wise too.
I want to ask you about growing up in the FSM, knowing the people, the problems that we have with wayward migrants who have a really difficult time assimilating and getting used to this new kind of life. And we talked about the possibility of having some sort of orientation program. This is a big thing. Does it? And I asked you emotionally, does it bother you when you hear these stories? And people bring it up, and I think that we have to get past the problem here and find solutions. I think that we've done this for too long, trying to profile people into this, this niche, and it's not always true. Right. I've always said that I think that the Micronesians that have come here to work in our restaurants and do all of that kind of labor probably have the secret recipe to KFC, to all of the Wendy's chili. I mean, whatever. They probably are the holders of all, because they're the ones that are working in these kitchens. But does it? Talk to me about what the mood is that both of you have about your fellow countrymen falling into trouble.
Well, generally the Chukis get a bad rap, and our father is Chukis. He was born and raised in Chuk, became educated, got a college degree from Missouri back in the 60s, and he's a great dad. He's been there for us growing up, and we look up to him. And so when I hear things about specifically Chuukese, they just seem to get a bad rap, not only in Guam, but FSM, Hawaii. And it does hurt when we hear that kind of stuff, because not everyone's making trouble or working as a
Yeah.
janitor at a fast food store.
Sure.
But ultimately, we're all trying to get to a better place in life, and it just seems like the Chuukese get a bad rap. So when I came to Guam, I emailed you and said, hey, Patty, if you have time, I'd like to just maybe get on the show just to put it out there. There's other FSM citizens, Chuukese, Ponapens, that are doing well and don't want to move and have come home and are trying to bring their family members back, in addition to being examples for others to come back. There are people our generations that are doctors, lawyers, engineers that aren't coming back, and we need them back desperately
Yeah.
to help change the FSM, both develop it, keep the culture as much as we can, and solve the problems that we have. In the FSM, one issue, maybe like everywhere else, is government and politics. We've got some major issues in the FSM with politics, and 2023, the financing for the compact is supposed to end unless we renew it through negotiations. So it's very important right now. It's critical, because if we fail in developing our country in this short period of time up to 2023, there are going to be a ton of more migration to Guam and Hawaii.
Yeah,
And so
but there's also an opportunity for the Chinese. I was making the point that the Chinese I mean, do you feel like the Chinese are courting you now?
I think the Chinese, the Japanese, Americans, they're all interested in investing, whether it's in the fishing industry or hotel and hospitality business. I'm not sure I'd say right now that the Chinese are any more are pushing any more than the others.
Okay.
Yeah, as you say, just to add on to what Ken was talking about, regarding Chuukese having a bad rap. Maxwell wasn't the only Chuukese that got licensed by the bar yesterday. There was another Chuukese, and
Yeah.
so 2 out of the 8 people that received their licenses yesterday were Chuukese.
I tell you, we only got a minute left. I can't believe that. But just quickly, can I ask you? You see what the problem is. You see where some of the dysfunction is there, and the transition on this other end. What's this bridging solution, you think?
Gosh, that's a tough question.
You know what I mean? You see where the problem
right.
is. When my kids are getting into trouble, I know, I can see with clear view what it is that they're lacking. I know that a lot of it's clearly familial. It has everything to do with your
Right.
family. But
For me, I'd say 2 things. One is we need to stop the migration out of FSM and try to get more good people back to FSM. That's number 1. Number 2 is the families, I think, are broken back home. And that's leading to a lot of drinking issues and smoking and causing issues, which leads to people leaving FSM. We have a hotel and a business in Chuuk and 35 employees, but many of them are quitting and moving here. I think it's because there's domestic issues and alcohol issues at home. And so those issues with the broken family and people leaving FSM are related. I'd like to keep people from leaving FSM and those who are out here to come back home and invest in the FSM. We're all there investing there, and we love being there. I hope that more of our people can do the same thing.
Well, I really appreciate you guys coming. I really do. I mean, it's just been a couple of great days of conversation and getting to know things about the islands that I didn't know, and it just really makes me want to come to Pohnpei and ride in your car and swim in your pool.
You're invited.
Hang out with your family. I just love your mother and father. So everything is working out. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you,
for coming.
Patty.
Patty.
Thank you,
And
Patty.
that'll do it for this time. Something to talk about. We'll see you on the radio.